Hi everybody, my name is Madeleine MacGillivray and I'm the communications specialist at CECLO, and today we're going to talk about why it is better for synthetic microfibers to biodegrade rather than to persist in the environment. A little bit about me. I'm a microplastics focused science communicator with a research background in microplastics pollution, and I help communicate on these complex topics of microplastics, biodegradation, climate change, etc. So we read about microfibers, they're all over the news, we expect legislation to help prevent this issue, and I think it's pretty fair to say that a lot of us know that synthetic microfibers are everywhere. But what does that really mean? And why does it matter if they don't biodegrade? After all, they're so tiny, they're really barely noticeable. But while they're minuscule in size, synthetic microfibers really are a macro problem. So let's look at some stats. Fibers that shed from synthetic textiles make up 35%, which is over a third of all microplastics in the oceans. That is a huge number. Annual estimates of plastic microfiber pollution that enters the oceans is equal in weight to more than 50 billion plastic bottles. And according to the Nature Conservancy, it's estimated that for every 500 shirts made, the equivalent of one shirt is lost as microfibers during the manufacturing process. So, what is the big deal about these tiny plastic fibers remaining in the environment? There are three major issues. Number one, they're a pollution problem. Number two, they may contribute to global warming. And number three, they're a potential threat to human health. So let's start with number one, the pollution problem. So this image is a great visualization of how microplastics are almost invisible. They're so tiny, but they really have serious impacts. So these are pelagic crabs. They're about 1 inch in diameter. They have synthetic microfibers wrapped around their claws, so they're literally shackled in plastic. Another issue is that marine life oftentimes can't distinguish between synthetic microplastics and food. So oftentimes they ingest them, and then some of this makes its way up in the food chain, and then in some cases it poisons marine life or causes it to starve to death. Now, number two, the climate problem. So if left to persist indefinitely, synthetic microfibers from textiles contribute to global warming by interfering with the ocean's ability to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. So how does this happen? Phytoplankton, which are like tiny plants, and zooplankton, which are like tiny animals, are the two main types of plankton in the oceans, and they play a huge role in the natural carbon cycle of this planet. So basically, phytoplankton incorporate carbon from CO2 into their tissues during photosynthesis, and phytoplankton are then eaten by zooplankton, and then larger species eat the zooplankton, and together they're the base of the entire marine food web. They're responsible for removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and producing at least half of the oxygen that we breathe. But synthetic microplastics, of course including microfibers, can block sunlight from phytoplankton, so that inhibits their ability to photosynthesize. And also microfibers are small enough to be ingested by zooplankton, which can block their digestive tracts, thereby of course starving, poisoning, or otherwise killing them. In addition to interfering with the ocean's ability to remove CO2 from the atmosphere, the future climate impacts from disruptions like this to the food chain at this fundamental level are unknown, but they really are not inconsequential. So lastly, microplastics may be a potential human health issue. So obviously there's a lot that we don't know, but what we do know tells us that it cannot be good. So we aren't trying to be alarmist in sharing this information, but they have been found in every major organ in the body, the bloodstream, also the human placenta and breast milk. And we know that they can trigger oxidative stress and an inflammatory response. Also, environmental pollutants and toxic additives and pathogens in the environment can attach to the surface of microplastics and impact our endocrine systems. So this is an area that is obviously still being really heavily researched, but the bottom line is that microplastics may harm human health, and of course synthetic microfibers are a form of microplastic. So that was an overview of why it's better for synthetic microfibers to biodegrade rather than to persist. Please explore our website to learn more. Thank you.